Okay, well, we can get started now. Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for coming today. If you weren't here for the first speaker event last week, my name is Tara. I'm part of the team that works on the SCT Innovation Fellows Program, where if you don't know what that is, you complete a series of weekly challenges to get points and to win prizes from the SCT. And this semester, I'm running the climate challenge, where you pick a climate or sustainability issue that you're interested in and come up with your own basic solution for how to begin tackling that problem. So if you've already signed up to take part in the challenge, that's awesome. And if not, I'm going to drop a link to register for the challenge in the chat. The registration is rolling right now, but it will close next week, so Tuesday, November 8th. So today, we have our second speaker event as part of the climate challenge, and we're so excited to welcome Alireza TayebNama, the CEO of Marley Technology, which uses sustainable blockchains to improve carbon offsets availability. And we're so excited to have you here today and to have Marley Technology sponsoring the prize for the competition, which is the interview for the paid internship. And so without further ado, I'll let you continue to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tara. Hey, everyone. My name is Alireza. I'm the founder and CEO of Marley. We're based in Sunnyvale, and we're a Web3/climate tech startup. Today, I'm just here to and happy to talk to you about what we're doing, a bit about the markets, environmental markets, as well as blockchain, how that's helping us to make the solution more transparent. I really want the conversation to be interactive. So I'm going to be talking probably for like 5-10 minutes. And then afterwards, happy to take any questions you might have as well. All right, let's get started. So Tara mentioned you're from different backgrounds, so I'll keep it fairly generic. But the vision that Marley pursues is essentially to be able to democratize environmental markets. What that means is that today we have different markets. You can call them carbon markets, environmental markets, and they need to be funded, right? They essentially need to be funded so that we can generate new projects, as well as additional projects need to be financed. These projects are quite essential because we're talking about forestation projects as example, renewable energy projects, geothermal, wind, solar, as well as newer type of technologies that are still being developed, like carbon capture, marine carbon, soil sequestration, at a whole, these projects save or absorb CO2. So they either save CO2 from being emitted into the atmosphere, or they can actually capture and store the CO2 that's already being emitted and is in the atmosphere. So these projects have to be funded, and they have to be funded because that's the only way that we can achieve the 2050 Paris Agreement targets. So a bit about the Paris Agreement. The US, like every other country in the world, has signed up for the United Nations Paris Agreement treaty, and as part of that, everyone has committed to full decarbonization by year 2050, which is the most audacious goal that humanity has set for itself ever. And we never had a situation where we had consensus across the world. But there's some disagreements how that can be achieved, what the timeframes are, how aggressive the emissions reductions targets should be. But as a whole, everyone agrees to the 2050 approach. So coming back to Marley, today the challenge is that many more projects have to be developed so that we can achieve the 2050 targets, but we don't have really solutions that enables people as well as businesses to go in and participate by funding these projects. You have to be like a Google or a Facebook or a very large corporation to be able to participate in these projects. And we are working on changing that by enabling even individuals to be able to go in and fund these projects that are so essential. So that's on the environmental market side. Again, the aim is to create tens of thousands of new projects, as well as enable millions of people to be able to participate in the market. We are on the blockchain, and blockchain is quite essential because we need a platform that enables us to be transparent, which is so critical for these markets, as well as be efficient and scalable. And blockchain enables all of these to happen at the same time. It is scalable, meaning that whether you serve 10 customers or 100 or 10,000, it doesn't really make a big difference. The underlying infrastructure is still the same, and it's easily scalable. It is transparent, meaning that every transaction that ever takes place is recorded on the chain. And because it is decentralized, meaning that many different points will hold the information, a mirrored version of the information. Therefore, you can't just change, amend, or delete the information. Now, what that enables us to do is basically, if someone invests and funds a project, that entire trail of information is going to be public information and can be looked up and verified and scrutinized. It also prevents, aspects like double counting, meaning that's basically the same project being offered or taken up by two different people, and at the same time false claims as well. So that if someone claims that they've actually done environmental work by funding these projects and they actually haven't done that, obviously the blockchain would also expose that and prevent that from happening, which is quite essential. Blockchains traditionally have, from Bitcoin onwards, been associated with very high emissions because obviously a lot of computing power goes behind these transactions, and that is obviously not ideal. If you're working on an environmental solution, the last thing you want is producing more emissions. So what we've done is we've done a lot of research, and we've partnered up with two very green blockchains. After Bitcoin, there've been many newer versions of modern blockchain platforms. They have been built on different consensus mechanisms, and it's even more efficient than Bitcoin has been. It's faster, and we've come to a stage now where you can actually have a chain that is zero carbon or even carbon negative, meaning that the emissions are so low and they are even being offset so that the chain not only emits carbon but can actually absorb carbon as well as a result. So building on it has a positive environmental impact, and I'd be pretty happy to see that development having taken place and is available now. So I guess that's in a nutshell what I wanted to discuss. I'm happy to take questions you might have. Again, I just wanted to be interactive. But just before I finish off, Tara mentioned, we do have paid internships available at the moment, both for someone with a general business, commerce, management background, or someone with an environmental science / sustainability background. But as well, if you're just interested and passionate about a topic, we'd be happy to consider that as well. I think probably through Tara you can find out more, but I'd be happy to share links as well of the opportunities, and would be happy for anyone who's interested to apply for those. So I guess back to you. Any questions from anyone?
If you guys have questions, feel free to just unmute and ask. You don't need to put your hands up or anything.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm just not really familiar with blockchain. So if you could kind of explain what it does and how it has an environmental impact, that would be super helpful. And I had another question as to how, or what types of projects can people invest in with this technology?
Yeah, good questions. So on a blockchain side, again, as I've mentioned, so it's about being able to have a platform that lets you record information in a transparent way, be efficient, fast, as well as scalable. So, traditionally, obviously, companies have used databases, right? Then, we have cloud, but none of these really let you share information and record information in a transparent way. Meaning that even if you use like a cloud solution, you still will have only access to information through your own team or through your own resources. You can't really share transactions that have happened on the cloud. Blockchain changes that, so that's, if I would find a project that is recorded publicly, I cannot change that. I cannot amend that fact. That becomes a fact that is recorded and maintained on the blockchain forever. And that is obviously, very, very critical, right? Because that lets us to be fully transparent, and everyone can just confirm information for themselves, right? You don't have to rely on a centralized authority, and that results in trust. We also mentioned scalability again. Databases traditionally have been very difficult to scale, because like imagine your phone, as an example, has a storage capacity. If you want to scale that and double that, you need 2 phones, right? The same with laptops. So it's very difficult to scale and add capacity. Cloud has made that easier, because we can just very quickly add capacity through AWS and other cloud providers. But blockchain, through its decentralized natures, even helps to go one step further, and even be more scalable through token architecture and different mechanisms. There's a lot of jargon and obviously tech stuff. I'm trying to keep it just general. But these are some of the benefits that blockchain provides, and the transparency I touched based on is critical to the environmental markets. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'm happy to take any follow-ons.
Follow-up as to what types of projects are usually invested in with technology?
So at the moment, our focus is on forestation projects, and there are a number of different types of forestation. There's afforestation, meaning that you just plant new trees on a land that's where there is just nothing, and then obviously you have to maintain these. There is preventing deforestation, meaning that there is a land, especially in the Amazon regions, old forests that is to be deforested, and a protective environment is being set up, boundaries are set up, and then that forest is maintained, and a number of other versions as well in the middle. But they all would be classified under forestation. Then there's renewable energy, solar, wind, as well as geothermal energy, and hydropower as well. So these would be renewable energy type of projects. There are a number of other ones, as I've mentioned, that we don't have robust technologies for them yet. Meaning that there's a lot of startups working on these today, but they haven't developed the required technology yet. I've touched based on soil sequestration as one example, and that is the ability to basically absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and be able to securely and permanently store it underground. That could be through injection, through plants and their roots. There are a number of other mechanisms as well, but that lets you, have a positive impact on the environment by essentially putting the CO2 back into the ground. But these are like the future, right? Again, we don't have the technologies yet. But yeah, I mean, this is obviously the areas that students like yourself, if you're interested, there's a lot of potential to get involved in these type of project developments. We don't get involved in that aspect ourselves, but lots of startups that purely focus on new methodologies to save or absorb CO2.
Thank you so much. That was super informative. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Awesome. I think Anthea had a question. She put it in the chat. I'll read it out. She says, is there any other sustainable applications of blockchain other than carbon sequestration? And what is your main source of funding?
Yeah, I mean, blockchain is a technology, right? Meaning that, you could have unlimited number of applications for it. Any area you look at, there is a use case for blockchain. I was at the LA Blockchain Week today, and we were saying that every asset in the world at some point will be tokenized, meaning that it's going to be placed on the blockchain, which is a very audacious statement. Every asset there is in the world will eventually get onto the blockchain. Imagine houses, cars, lands, real estate, intellectual property, trademarks, and you can just keep going and going. So, a lot of applications. Again, whether that's beneficial for the environment or not, again, that also depends on the use case. Sometimes it is, sometimes perhaps it is not, but it would provide other benefits, right? So what was the second part of the question? Our funding. So we are majority bootstrapped to this stage. We have had grants through foundations as well as in some small VC investments, and we've been part of Techstars, which is an accelerator, so they've invested in us, and we're looking to have our major fundraising round early next year.
Awesome. Definitely, that's definitely really informative. Anthea, if that answered your question, definitely feel free to drop any follow-ups in the chat, or just let us know. Does anyone else have questions?
Oh,
Go ahead. You're good.
okay, sure. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. It's been interesting so far. I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. I was wondering, is one of your goals kind of to connect other companies or individuals with environmental project groups in a transparent way? And is it related to ESG goals at all?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that is essentially, I guess, another way of putting it, because we're a platform. On one side, we have businesses and individuals. On the other side, we have environmental project owners, and our purpose is to connect these through the blockchain, directly with each other, right? Without middlemen, without agents, without brokers, making sure the funding goes back, the vast majority of funding goes back to the project owners, and in that way they have the resources that they need to be able to expand their projects as well as develop new projects. Can you just repeat the second part, please?
Yeah, thanks. That answered the majority of my question. I guess I was also just wondering, like a lot of big companies, especially right now, are focusing on environmental social governance goals. Like they'll have a sustainability page on their website that talks about ways they are sustainable or ways they have positive social impact. And so I was kind of wondering, are you trying to also kind of be that middleman for companies in that way where you're connecting them with ESG projects? I think you mainly answered my question, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way, right? So what we're doing is absolutely, helping with ESG targets for businesses as well as individuals. It's aligned with the SDG goal, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So all the projects would have at least 3-4 SDG goals ticked off. Some have more than 7 or 8. We have even up to 10. Today, climate action in general is still voluntary. So even the businesses that report on their ESG, that is obviously stakeholder driven, and companies do it on a voluntary basis. They don't have to necessarily do it unless you're in a very polluting industry, where the state would actually mandate emissions reduction targets. But the challenge is, because it is voluntary, many of the action has been focusing on perhaps publicity and actual action, and that's been a big challenge. Big corporates all would have ESG pages, ESG open positions for sure, sustainability managers, and some good work is happening, but there is definitely a need to do more, and in a more, coherent way, because otherwise, we're not going to get to the 2050 targets. That by 2050, everyone has to be net zero. That means every single company, as well as every single individual, have to be net zero in their own right. Otherwise, we're not going to hit that target. So again, some good steps have been taken, but a lot more needs to be done within the next 20-30 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the work you're doing is great in that way.
I think there was another question as well, right?
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for your time and sharing a bit about your experience and perspective. I'm curious, what do you look for in the people who create the projects that you choose to invest in? And how is that similar or different from onboarding internal team members?
Very different. Good question. I would say there is no comparison really, right? So the projects have to follow internationally recognized methodologies. So, you can't just set up a project and say, well, I want to plant trees and then I want to claim like environmental benefits or carbon credits as a result. It is a very complex process. It involves, unfortunately, I have to say, thousands of pages of still documentation. It takes around 2 years today to have a project certified and onboarded for the first time. But that is quite critical because there has to be full trust in these projects, right? So what we look for is methodologies recognized by the UN, by the European Union, and nonprofits that basically have the step-by-step actions that owners need to take to have the project certified. So they have to follow those processes. Then they have to go through a rigorous inspection, auditing process. And again, that takes 2 years. And then after that, basically, they'll be able to have an income from their projects through carbon markets. So we essentially don't control any of that, and we don't want to control any of that. That has to be independent, and again, it has to be internationally recognized. So there's improvements that can be done to speed up the process, make it quicker, faster, more efficient, use more technology, but that is completely independent from us, versus obviously internal teams. We would have full control over that.
Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one. When you were applying for grants and like for investments from VCs, how did you alter your pitches for both, or did you even?
So good question, but it's very broad. So it just depends on the circumstances. VCs in general have a more expected requirements. So basically, there is a process how you have to make your pitch deck, how you have to do the pitch itself, the due diligence, and that might vary slightly from VC to VC. But at a broad level, it's quite similar, right? And that's why if you can get one VC to sign up for your idea, then it's much easier to get a second, third. There's just like this ripple effect. With grants, it's completely different. So first, I mean, it depends who provides the grant. I mean, is it a government entity? Is it a private entity? In our case, it was a private entity. Where are they based? And it just very much depends on how they want to structure it. Oftentimes, obviously, with grants, it has to be aligned with their vision, their requirements. So, and it's grant to grant, it's just completely different. So that's all I can say.
Thank you.
No worries.
Does anyone have any more questions? Feel free to drop it in the chat if you're in a loud environment and you can't feel like you can't unmute. Otherwise, feel free to unmute and ask.
Everyone seems to be good.
I'm just curious, what does the internship role look like that you guys are specifically hiring for right now?
Well, there are two different ones. One is more business and management focused. The other one environmental science focused. So they're both go for 3 months. They paid internships, part-time, super flexible. We're based in Sunnyvale, but remote is fine as well. In fact, it's encouraged. So on the environmental side, it's going to be to learn about the work that's been done to this date around methodologies, carbon markets, project generation, essentially, the questions you've asked, to go deeper into those, understand what's been happening in the past 5 years, and be able to learn about the gaps, but also have a say in terms of shaping the future. Because as I've mentioned, one of the aspects is the certification process is just very inefficient. It just takes way too long, right? So how do we make that quicker? How do we reduce the 2 years to 2 weeks? How do we use technology for that? So it's going to be a lot around researching, learning, but also again having a say in defining the future. On the business one, that is more around business development. So learning about ESG goals of businesses as well as individuals, how environmental markets have been used to this date for net zero targets, engaging with businesses as well, understanding the requirements, the challenges, sustainability managers, what's been happening, but also being able to understand the technology we're developing, the platform, and how that fits, to address the challenges of these organizations and individuals towards the 2050 net zero targets.
Thanks.
No worries.
Does anyone have any final questions?
Everyone seems to be good. I'm actually on the road, so I've just stopped by, waiting for the call to finish, and then I'm heading back to San Francisco. So, but I'm happy. If you've got any other questions as well, feel free to shoot me an email, either directly or through Tara. If you're interested in the internship, let us know as well. Tara, can I share with you the link to the actual job descriptions that perhaps you
Yes.
can share that with everyone? Otherwise, yeah, stay in touch. Climate tech in general has a lot of potential, and even if you're not from a sustainability background, definitely I would recommend consider it, because there's going to be a massive demand for thousands of other people who have a background or expertise in environmental sciences, climate tech, sustainability, ESG, because it's going to touch every single company in the world in the future. So yeah, definitely, get yourself into the space. That's what I recommend.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking today. We really appreciate it. We're so grateful that you attended and that you are sponsoring the prize. Thank you so much. I will definitely pass on the job description to everyone in the follow-up email. So definitely keep an eye out for that to whoever is here. And make sure you register for the climate challenge if you haven't already, because I only send the follow-up emails to people who are registered. So make sure to do that. Thank you so much again, and have a great rest of your night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.